Welcome to the 5th Annual Kick Sugar Summit, the world's first summit on the topic of sugar and sugar addiction recovery. We hope our interviews provide you with the information and the inspiration you need to break up with refined carbohydrates in all its many forms and help you get back to the healing powers of whole foods. Be sure to hop on our Summit Facebook page and share your favorite speakers and aha moments. We love hearing how our summit helps you move forward into a happier, healthier, sugar-free life. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Kick Sugar Summit. Today, I have with us a really awesome guest by the name of Dr. Cali Estes. And if you Google her, you'll discover that she's known as the celebrities coach, and she bounces between Miami and New York and LA. And her area of expertise is addiction, and in particular, sugar and food addiction. She has a PhD in psychology and is the founder of the world's largest addiction school that, believe it or not, is in 25 different countries and 5 different languages. So we have a guest who's not only walked in our shoes as a fellow food addict that has recovered, but she now professionally helps others to do the same. Welcome, Cali.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So why don't we start with your journey through the affliction of sugar addiction?
Oh, goodness. Okay, so I'll give you a visual. I grew up, and in my house, my grandmother and my mother and my sister and I lived, so we were kind of all women. My grandmother was a dietary supervisor, so she would cook and bake. There was always dessert. Dessert started at breakfast, so it was always there. She wouldn't eat it, but she'd bake it. So breakfast was muffins and French toast and waffles, and then lunch had a dessert, dinner had a dessert, and then snack at night was a dessert. So it was always there. And my mother was a foodie. So if she was stressed out, she would grab me as a child and sit there at 2:00 in the morning with the cake and the fork, and we would eat and we would talk. And that's sort of how I grew up. And I learned food is comfort, food is fun, food is reward, food is punishment, food is everything. So as opposed to having alcohol or drugs in the house, we had food. And it's legal, and everybody has it, and it was in abundance. So if you fast forward that, when I'm 23, I'm in college, this is normal. I go out with the girls, we go out, it's a ladies' night on a Thursday, and I always came home alone, and they always had boyfriends or picked up guys, and I'd come home at 2:00 in the morning and get my cake out and eat it with a fork. And one of my roommates walked in on me, and I'm sitting on the floor, eating the cake with my hands at this point. There's cake on me, cake on the dog, cake on the wall, and I'm crying, and she goes, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm just like, "I'm tired of being single. I'm never going to find a guy." And she goes, "What does that have to do with cake?" I'm like, "Well, this is what you do." And she's like, "Do what?" I'm like, "This is how I handle stress. This is my cake." And she looks at me, she goes, "I think you need help." And that was the first time I was like, this isn't normal. This is weird. And I went to the therapist, and the therapist said, well, and this is back in the 90s, according to the DSM-5, you're not a binge purger. You're not throwing up. So you're not a bulimic, and you're not restricting. So you're not anorexic. So you don't have an eating disorder. So go to the fat doctor, and sent me to the fat doctor. And he said, well, you're just fat. You overeat. Okay, great. Here's some fen-phen. And if you remember fen-phen, I got hooked on fen-phen and diet pills. And I went from 160 pounds to 90 pounds, and I could still eat the cake, and I could still eat the pizza, and I could still eat the food. And then eventually I had to kick both because I started getting heart palpitations. And at 23, the cardiac surgeon said, if you don't stop the diet pills, you're going to die. And then when the diet pills got under control, the eating went up. And then I said, okay, I have a problem here. I'm a food addict. Obviously, I can't put it down. I can't stop. So I started researching chemicals in the brain and food and how it interacts chemically. And then not just that, emotionally. So not only was I chemically addicted to sugar, I was emotionally addicted to sugar. That Snickers bar wasn't just a fix, it was salvation. It made me feel good for the 3 minutes it took to eat it. And then guilt, shame, remorse, and hating myself and calling myself fat and going to the gym followed. And it was a pattern. And I said, I have to break the pattern. That's my story, and learning how to break the pattern. And I was doing yoga to break the pattern and going to the gym and trying alternative things. And I detoxed from sugar, and it was the worst 2 weeks of my life ever. I was on the floor at a ball. I'll never forget, crying, I'm going to die. And my boyfriend's like, you're not going to die. For God's sakes, it's ice cream. You're not going to die. I'm like, I swear to God, I'm going to die. And he's like, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. And it was awful. By day 3, I couldn't think. I was sweaty. I had headaches. I felt awful. But by day 5, I felt amazing. And by day 10, I was like, oh, I can think and I'm clear and my skin cleared up and I lost weight and I had energy. I could get out of bed and I'm like, wow, I'm excited. And I was never excited before because I would eat Ben and Jerry's before bed and wake up and go, oh, I feel awful. I feel so sick. And I didn't know it was the food. And now I do.
Awesome. So how old were you when these light bulb moments were coming on and when you finally were able to break the pattern and get free?
So the first light bulb moment was 23 when my roommate said, there's something wrong with you. And I went, oh God, there's something wrong with me. I thought everybody did this. So I went to the therapist and of course she said, well, it's not normal, but it's not really in the DSM. So it's not abnormal. I don't know. And then as I started to talk to my friends, I realized they all had some degree of sugar addiction. And I said, as I got older, after I kicked sugar, I said, let's all try it. I can do it. You can do it. And I would encourage them to go 2 or 3 days sugar-free, and they would complain about the headaches and all of that. And I thought, wow, this must really be something. And then I started to research the chemical side of sugar, and it's like one component away from heroin. And I went, wow, that's crazy. Like it's physically changes your body chemistry. And the serotonin dopamine spikes, and I started to research and read. And then I started to give it to my clients that were coming off of drugs. And I said, let's go sugar-free. And of course they went, oh, I can't do that. I can't go sugar-free. How can I go? I'm giving up heroin, but you want me to give up sugar? Like that's the last thing. And I said, if you can give up heroin, you can give up sugar. You could do both. And I kind of started encouraging them to let it all go and really, truly be sober and be free.
Amazing. And how about for you? Like how old were you when you were able to move forward as a whole food woman, let's say?
All said and done, including gluten 30. It took a long time because I gave up gluten next because I was still feeling foggy and I didn't know why. And somebody said, go take one of those allergy tests. And I did. And gluten was number 1. And I went, God, I just gave up sugar. Now I've got to give up gluten. How am I going to do it? And I went, you know what? If you gave up sugar, you're a good woman. You can do this. You got this. And I talked myself through it. And then I gave up bread. And I felt even more amazing. And I was, wow, I feel so good. I feel energized. I feel excited. This is good.
Yeah. Awesome. That's a really typical story, isn't it? That once we hit one level, there's another level, there's a next level, and then there's a next level. And yeah. It's a virtuous cycle. We just wonder how great can our life get? How well can our bodies be? Tell us a little bit about how you work professionally then in terms of interrupting the food addiction pattern. So by food addiction, I mean the sugar and the flour and the refined carbohydrates, the starches. How you break that pattern both biochemically as well as the emotional eating component that you described.
So I start them biochemically and I tell them this, for the first 2 weeks, you're going to be miserable. You're going to feel bad. You're going to have headaches. You're going to be lightheaded. You're going to have insomnia. You're going to swear you're dying. But we have to break the chemical side. So you can have all the fruit you want. You can have agave nectar. You can have stevia. And you can have honey. And if you feel the need to have Ben and Jerry's, what I want you to do is go get the all-natural raw honey and a teaspoon. And I want you to eat it until it's sickening sweet. And guess what? You won't want Ben and Jerry's. So I start them there. And I also tell them it has to start with baby steps. You have to put down the Coca-Cola. You have to put down the sugar in your coffee. I have so many clients that will get coffee in the morning and they dump so much sugar in it. It's like having sugar with a side of coffee. And I say to them, the very first thing is you're putting sugar in your drinks. If you can't give that portion up, how am I ever going to get you get the cake and the pizza and the, Burger King? I've got to get you just start with the drinks a little bit at a time. And then from there, add on and add on and add on. And I have some warriors that'll say, okay, I'm all in. I'll take it all off my plate. And by day 3, they're swearing they don't want to be all in, but they're too far in. I'm like, you're too far in. You're halfway there. Don't back down now. You're almost through it. So it's kind of both. And then the emotional side, that's a whole separate ballgame. So I sit them down and I have them do a food mood journal. What moods are tied to what foods? So for me, it's ice cream. If I'm sad, my go-to is ice cream. My go-to is Ben & Jerry's, and my go-to is peanut butter cup. So I already know that's a trigger. So when I'm grocery shopping, I will not go down the ice cream aisle. I don't even subject myself to going down and going, oh, let's see what's new. There's no point, because emotionally, that's my trigger. So I teach them how to look for their trigger foods, which foods cause inflammation, and which foods you may or may not be allergic to. And I try to get them all to do the allergy test to see if sugar and gluten are on there. Chances are they are. And when it comes back they are, I say, okay, from a biochemical standpoint, you have to give this up. If you want to feel good, you can't keep eating garbage and going, I don't feel good. I want to feel good, but I want to keep eating garbage. It doesn't make sense. So it's sort of two-pronged approach.
Right. And how long have you found in your professional experience it takes people to move through the process of weaning off of the sugar and the flour and the refined carbohydrates and breaking the habit of reaching for food to alter our moods?
So two different things. The habit itself is the longest part. And I always say 21 days is what it takes to make a change. But usually for my clients, it's about 3 months.
Yeah.
Because it's so second nature. For example, I have a client at night. She says, I have a Hershey Kiss, just one, before bed every single night, and I've done it for 20 years. And she goes, please don't make me give that up. And I said, that's an emotional attachment. You don't need the Hershey Kiss. So she went one night without it and couldn't sleep all night. She was up all night obsessing over the Hershey Kiss, and she ate the whole bag. So she called me. Yeah. So she called me and she says, I don't know what happened. I ate the whole bag. And I said, okay, your attachment. So then we started processing what about that Hershey Kiss made her feel safe. And it went back to childhood. It went back to when she couldn't sleep, her grandmother would give every grandchild a Hershey's Kiss to sleep. So she associated it with happy grandma, happy times. That was her happiness. And I said, well, your happiness is wrapped up in a piece of foil of garbage. So that's not what makes you happy. So we had to separate the memory and replace it with something else. So I had to give her a task that would also remind her of grandma that wasn't food related. So it kind of helped her break it. I had a client that her go-to was Mountain Dew. And I said, why Mountain Dew? Full of sugar. And she said, well, every time I was thirsty, my grandmother would hand me a Mountain Dew. So she associated thirst with Mountain Dew. And I said, you should have been handed water. And she said, well, in my house, it was Mountain Dew and junk food. So I had to re-break that memory and switch it out with water. So we started with fizzy lime flavored waters and a can. So she could go psst with the can with the sound of the Mountain Dew. And she had the cold can. So she had the touch. So it felt like it was the Mountain Dew, even though it didn't taste like the Mountain Dew. It was sparkling water. And it took time for her brain to go, okay, I'm not feeling less than. I'm not feeling like I'm not getting Stacia because I have the can and I have the Mountain Dew, but it's really not a Mountain Dew. And then once her brain caught on, it was still okay. Then she started to feel better. And she said, I really don't need the Mountain Dew. I just needed to know I wasn't going to be deprived of the Mountain Dew. So it was the thought, I can't have that. I want that. So as soon as we made a better switch, it worked out for her.
Ah, that's amazing. And that's so clever. And I love this idea of the swaps. Like, what am I giving up and what am I going to replace it with that keeps that function happening?
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us a little bit about the role of nutrition in repairing brain chemistry as well as supplements.
So I have a supplement line that's very unique to different styles of addiction. There's one for heroin, one for alcohol, one for food. And what it does is it replaces the amino acids in your brain and the things you lose by eating poorly. So if you have a diet that's in refined sugar and fast food, you're going to be missing key nutrients that your body needs to excel and move forward. You're also not going to be firing on all cylinders in your brain. You're going to feel foggy and kind of out of it. So I took the best aminos and the best supplements I've used for years and created an actual box custom for our clients. And it's called Pro Recovery RX. Kind of looks like that. This is the one for heroin. I don't have the food one ready. It'll be ready, but it'll be a different colored box. And it has everything they need. It's a morning, noon, and night supplement to make them feel better. And I use it with the detox protocol when they're coming off of sugar. And I try to get them on this before they come off sugar. So it's not that, that huge, hard, oh my God, I feel awful. It's slower. It kind of slows it down. And then we work with a nutritionist as well. I have a nutritional therapist that takes a look at all their food choices and recommends different things together. So for example, people who say, well, I don't feel happy, will say eat a sweet potato because the sweet potato is rich in tryptophan, which converts to serotonin and dopamine. So there's certain foods you can eat over other foods, whereas a white potato is very starchy, it's going to turn to sugar. You're not going to get the same feel-good chemical that you would if it was a sweet potato. And my clients like to negotiate. So I'll say, have a sweet potato, and I'll get the phone call that says, how about a sweet potato French fry? Sweet potato and sweet potato French fry. French fry is not healthy. Yes, but it's a sweet potato. So they'll negotiate. I'll say, okay, in the beginning, go for it. Eventually, a baked sweet potato is better than the fried French fry. But for right now, I'll let you have it.
Got you. Tell us a little bit about detox then. What other things besides the supplement line that you put together, which I didn't know about, that sounds really cool, that people can do to help make that really intense first couple of weeks go better?
Epsom salt baths are fantastic. Lavender, you can use eucalyptus, anything that helps the body detox. I'll send them to the dry sauna and the wet sauna at the gym, have them sit for 20 minutes and just let some of the toxins come out of your body. And I'll have people that eat a lot of dough, a lot of bread, tell me they actually smell the yeast coming out of their pores as they stop eating it and start detoxing. And I had one woman, she kept saying, I feel like I put on 20 pounds and it wasn't going down. And I said, I want to send you for a yeast test because I wonder if you have yeast in the gut because you really ate so much bread and so much pizza. And she came back and she was full of Candida. And she did a diflucan flush and lost all this weight and her stomach was flat. And she goes, what is that from? And I said, well, you eat a bagel for breakfast. For lunch, you're eating a muffin and a donut. And for dinner, you're eating pizza. Everything is yeast. What do you think is going to happen to your body? It's going to start growing yeast inside. And you're not even going to realize it. So I tell people, if you want to look like a donut or a bagel, eat that because the yeast in that will cause your body to expand.
That's hilarious. Yes, I find that Candida was a huge issue for me, actually, and that there's some evidence to suggest that cells are living. Well, obviously they're living, and the bacteria and the yeast in our bodies are living, and they can communicate with our brain, their preferences. So they're part of the addiction. Is that been your experience and your philosophy?
Oh, yes. There is a machine called the Exmogen. And my chiropractor friend has one in LA, and he said, I want you to see this thing. And I went out in July, and I said, what is it? He goes, just sit down. So I sat down, and he puts this headset on, and you take all your jewelry off, so you have no metal, and you put your feet on these little metal pads, and you have a big screen TV. And it makes that old dial-up AOL sound, and for 30 minutes you hear that, and you look on the screen, and it shows you every organ. And what it does is it sends a signal to your brain sends a signal to the organ, and the organ then tells you if it needs help or not. So mine got to the gut and it lit up like a Christmas tree. Everything from esophagus all the way down out. And he was explaining to me, he's like, your gut is your second brain. So everything, if your gut is off and your flora is off, your brain is going to tell you. And it kept pinging gut health. And then he started asking me questions. I said, yeah, I was diagnosed with Candida when I was 20. And I'm always doing diflucan flushes because it just keeps piling up. So he put me on a gut health supplement. That's been fantastic. And it's a protein shake because I get the liquid stuff they give you, like, hey, drink this, doesn't work. But it's a protein shake and I can throw in, fruits and such, and it tastes great. And it's actually tons of flora and bacteria that as you drink it, goes through your stomach and kind of coats it and makes you feel better.
Wow, cool. So you have personal experience in turning around Candida in your own body.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was a sickly child, and my mother kept taking me to the normal doctor. I had ear infections, and I was going deaf, and they put me on antibiotics from the time I was born to the time I was 14. Well, then I had all kinds of other problems, and the normal doctor said, well, there's nothing wrong with you. And in my 20s, I went to a naturopath, and he listened and he said, you had a lot of antibiotics because the flora in your body is probably gone. The good bacteria is probably gone. It's probably overrun. And he had me do a Candida test. I'll never forget. He hands me this little French fry cup. I said, what am I supposed to do with that? And he goes, well, you're going to go home and you're going to, go to the bathroom. Go to the bathroom in the French fry cup? He said, yeah, poop in the French fry cup. And I looked at him and I went, "You're kidding, right?" And he goes, "Nope." So I'm like, okay, this is bizarre. And I did it, and he called me and he said, "I need you to come in." Well, when they say come in, it's never good. And I got there and he said, "We monitor on a scale of 1 to 5, and you're 5 plus plus plus. So you are overrun with bad bacteria." And that's when he gave me diflucan. It was the first time in my life I said, wow, I feel good after the diflucan flush. And then he said, "You also have to give up sugar." And so he was the first doctor who said no sugar.
Wow.
And I came home with this anti-yeast book, and I sat down and I looked through the recipes, and I'm like, I can't eat any of this. I can't eat that. I can't eat this. I can't eat that. And I'm a dessert person. And it had this great recipe in the back, and it was oatmeal, peanut butter, and a banana. And you take a cup of oatmeal, 2 bananas, and this little bit of peanut butter, and you mix it together, and you flatten it out, and you cook it in the oven like a cookie. And it would come out this big, big solid cookie. So I would have this. I'm like, oh, I'm going to have cookies tonight. I was so excited. And my friends were, those aren't cookies. Where's the chocolate chips? You can't have chocolate chips on the Candida diet. You can't have sugar. So I would make these cookies, and eventually my friends started to eat them. And they said, this is really good. I feel good when I eat it, not crappy. So I started converting my friends one by one with no sugar, to the point when we'd go out, we'd all have tea for dessert, or we'd have a coffee with cream and no sugar. So it started to get, my circle started to support me, which was important because in the beginning they didn't.
Yes.
And then when I met my husband, he can eat all kinds of junk food. It doesn't matter. So we have a rule. He can't bring the junk food in the house. So he can have all the Wendy's, all the McDonald's, garbage he wants. And when he comes home, I don't want to know about it. I don't want to see the wrapper. In my mind, it never happened, and we're going to have our organic dinner.
Awesome. That's good for everybody. Good for him too. How many people approach you and book you as a coach for the problem of sugar addiction or food addiction?
A lot.
Is it common?
It's very common. And I usually start off a lot of times with the husband for a drug addiction or alcoholism. And the wife, I find out she's eating for stress eating. And I'll say, let's get that under control as well. Let me help him. Let me help you. You'll do it as a team. And they end up letting their vice go together. And a lot of times the wives don't even realize how addicted they are to food and sugar. They're just stressed out and they're doing this all night long, or they're bored. You hit your mid-40s and you go, okay, now what am I going to do? I'm married, I have kids, the kids are grown. What do I do on a Tuesday at 9 o'clock? I'm not going to go dancing. I'm not 20 and I'm married, so I'm not going to be looking for a husband. What do I do? I'll watch Netflix and I'll eat.
Right. Cool. Okay. Is there anything else that you would like us to know about food addiction and sugar addiction?
It can be managed, and it can be, the vice can be broken. Everybody has to eat. So I know it's hard to do, but it can be done. And if you do it, if you keep a food mood journal and you work on knowing what your triggers are, and not just physically, but emotionally, and you start letting the physical triggers go and the emotional triggers go, you will feel better. Of course, at some point you may be able to have a sliver of cake. You may not be able to, depending on how your body reacts, but you can't look at it like a diet. It can't be, well, Monday I'm going to go off the diet. It has to be a lifestyle change. And if you put the time and effort into it, you can get there.
Yeah, that's a really good point about that. So some people, the most common question I think for sugar addicts, either they ask out loud or in their own hearts, do I really have to give up sugar forever? How would you answer that question?
I had that question. That was me.
Right?
And then it was, why me? Why me?
Yes.
Why do I have to do this? And I've learned something, that a lot of cultures don't put sugar in their food. In the United States, we put sugar in everything. Other cultures don't have sweet tea. I'm in the South. I ask for an unsweet tea, and everyone looks at me like I'm crazy. What's that? It comes with sugar. Well, I don't want sugar. Well, why would you want plain tea? That's gross. So it's a mindset. If you start telling yourself, real food doesn't have sugar in it, it's naturally sweet, I don't need that, and you start shopping around the outside of the grocery store, that's food. Those aisles are food-like product. So I tell my clients, that's food-like product. And everything that's not a real whole food, like an apple or a pear or spinach, is a dessert. That means popcorn is a dessert. Doritos are a dessert. And they say that's snack. No, a carrot would be a snack. An apple would be a snack with some cashew butter or peanut butter, but that bag of Doritos is a dessert. And you start changing your mindset, you'll start to realize you don't need that stuff. And then you start to feel better and realize you really don't want that stuff.
Oh, I love that. I love that progression of, at first you're just like, no one gives up sugar without a really good reason. Obviously, no one's going to give up a Kit Kat or Ben and Jerry's unless something really compelling has got their attention. So the first step is I need to give this up, or at least I need to experiment to see if I feel better off this processed refined carbs.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes that, oh man, you couldn't pay me to go back, right? I can't believe I used to look at that and think I would want to eat that.
The first time I tried to binge eat the sugar like I used to, I was so sick. I was in the bathroom and I couldn't leave the bathroom. And I said, what is wrong? And I'm Googling my symptoms, and it's because you've cleaned your system out. Your body looks at like a foreign substance and it wants it out, 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 out. And it was coming out, out, out. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to do that again. That was probably not a good idea. So now I can manage. I can have a small piece, a small piece of cake. I don't need the whole thing, but that took a long time. Because that small piece of cake, my brain triggered and what you need it all. You really need that whole cake. Now my brain goes, you don't really need it.
Wow. So that's really encouraging for some people, I assume, because that's what they hope. They hope that one day they can go back and become a normal eater. They can have a little bit of something baked or processed and go, that was just enough, and not go off the deep end.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. And it's funny because for me, I have no interest in cake. I probably could do that. I have no interest. I don't want to eat cake. Thank you. It doesn't look appealing to me anymore. And anyway, so with respect to the benefits that people see we know the benefits of eating sugar and flour and all those processed foods, the pleasure of it, the energy, the social acceptability of it, the convenience, and how cheap it is. But what are the benefits of getting off it?
So you have true energy. You don't have fake energy. When you're taking sugar, you have what's called a fake energy. So you have the lift, and then you have the crash. If homeostasis were here, your insulin has to spike. It has to go down. In that down, you feel worse than you should. But if you're doing, say, a banana and peanut butter, you're going to feel homeostasis. You're going to have good, sustainable energy. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you don't have brain fog. When I'm doing large amounts of sugar and white flour, I can't think. I feel like I have a disconnect. Like, what is that word I'm looking for? Or what is that? Where did I put my keys? I feel very disconnected. I don't have that when I'm not eating sugar and white flour. I feel very clear. I feel very centered. I feel very balanced. My skin is very clear. When I'm eating white flour and sugar, my skin is not clear. It feels blotchy. I also have the belly bloat. That was huge for me. When I'm not eating the sugar and white flour, my stomach is almost flat. When I'm eating it, I have this little pouch. And people say, oh, well, every woman has that. Well, to an extent, yes. But I also have an additional pouch because of all the yeast and stuff going on down there. So those are some of the benefits. And of course, you feel like you want to do things that you normally wouldn't want to do. You feel more energy, go to the gym at night, go out on the weekend. You're not stuck in the house going, oh, I feel so sad. I feel fat. I feel depressed. I'm going to eat. You don't have those feelings because you're not in that mindset.
Right. You broke the pattern. What is one of the most surprising benefits you've seen from your clients?
I had a 350-pound client go down to 190 pounds, which was his goal weight, and climb a major mountain.
Wow.
And train for it. And he said to me, I never thought I could do that. He was on a breathing machine, a CPAP machine. He had asthma. He had all these health problems. And he said, I really thought I was just stuck in the house, that I was going to die. And now he works out outside. His blood sugar is normal. His blood pressure went down. His cholesterol went down. He said, I feel amazing.
Amazing. That's awesome. Well, thank you for this information and inspiration, Dr. Estes. It's very much appreciated.
Well, thank you. And thank you for having me.
Bye-bye, buddy.